All right, everybody. Hope everybody is having a very, very good Sunday. Um, so what we're gonna do today, this is gonna be kind of a long show. I didn't do damage report the other night just because I was kind of gassed. I had a bunch of schoolwork, all kinds of other stuff. So what we are going to do today, however, is we're going to do a quick damage report kind of thing to talk about the game with Toronto that Carolina won in overtime, and then we will talk about the game today. So at one point during all this, we'll probably take about a 10 or 15-minute break just so I can compile some more data on some stuff I want to look at today. Um, but other than that, yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and get the show started because I planned on having it going around 1 and I just didn't get everything done that I wanted to get done with it. However, we'll go ahead and get it started. I'll take a quick break to grab the rest of the stuff that I need to grab, and then we will go from there. Now, if you'll excuse me for just one moment, I need to give into my dependency on this stuff. Alrighty. Let's see. Alright. So, usual stuff. The Don't Sue Me slide. If you want a hat, if you want a decal, link to the store is in the description. So, this was a very, very fun game, but also kind of aggravating at the same time. I know a lot of people were kind of critical with how the Canes played this game, how they executed it. I wasn't too upset with this at all. Any game where you can win in somewhat unorthodox ways, you did something right. And when I say unorthodox, the Hurricanes won this game without a 5-on-5 goal. The 3-on-3 overtime winner by Alexander Nikishin, the first of his career, 10th of the season for him, which gives him the franchise record for goals by a rookie defenseman in Carolina Hurricanes history. Keandre Miller, that beautiful shorthanded goal, that whole play, amazing. Power play goal from Jordo, and the penalty shot goal from Eric Robinson, who earned every bit of that whole situation. If there's the best depth scorer on the Carolina Hurricanes is Eric Robinson, by far. So, final score, of course, was 4-3. 4.47 to 2.08 for expected goals, 5-on-5 goals. As aforementioned, like I said, kind of an unorthodox win, but we'll take it. 0 5-on-5 goals for the Canes, 3 for the Maple Leafs. That would end up being all 3 of their goals. 5-on-5 expected, 0.81 to 1.63. Penalty minutes, 4 to 10, favoring or for Carolina. Yep, good point, Bobby. 2 points is 2 points. A lot of people were upset with Canes with that game. I wasn't. That just looked like, yeah, it took them a little bit to get to their game, but like once they figured it out, they were fine. I thought they were much better in part of the second period, and they started to really take over in the third. Carolina had one shorthanded goal, 78-43 for the shot attempts. Shots blocked, 11-21. So pretty good percentage there of Toronto shot attempts were blocked by Carolina, enough to get it done. And then face-off percentage, 48.1 to 51.9. Close enough to 50 for my taste, especially with a team that forechecks and gets the puck back as well as Carolina does. Now, there is something I want to pull up here real quick because a lot of people are worried about Bussy. Yeah, he has kind of come back down to earth, but this is something that I think was reasonable to expect. That does not mean that this is where he's going to stay, though. I think that he's going to find some sort of median between what he was doing when he first was claimed off of waivers and doing better than what he's doing now. And that is more than enough to for the $1.9 million price tag that Carolina played for him. It was never realistic to expect him to maintain what he was doing. What it is realistic to believe is that he can get back to a level to where he's close to what he was, and the biggest thing is continuing to make timely saves, and he made enough of them the other night. He probably should have had a couple of those goals. You could argue for all 3. But I think that this is just kind of a growing pain thing. Teams are taking Brandon Bussy very seriously when they play against the Hurricanes when he's the starter, when he's in the net, primarily because, the secret's out. He's got a reputation now. Everybody everywhere was like, hey, who is this guy when he showed up? And he put the league on notice. And when you put the league on notice, people, they took notice and they started doing things a little bit differently to get to him. It's adversity. He will weather it. Like I said, one of my favorite movies ever, The Dark Knight, where Batman's sitting up in the penthouse after what's her name dies and Two-Face gets turned into Two-Face, Alfred tells him, "Did you expect that you would spit in the face of Gotham's criminals and there not be any casualties?" Well, Brandon Bussey made the entire league aware of who he was. You think that he wasn't going to face some adversity at that point, and it was going to happen. But I think he's going to get through this. He will get back to a goaltender that is to some degree or another similar to what we saw. Maybe not at that same level, but he doesn't really need to be. If Brandon Bussey turns out to be 3/4 of the goaltender it looked like he was for the first 25 games he was in Carolina, Carolina's good. So I'm not too worried about that. Now, one thing I will look at here, I'm going to pull all this up. I want to see what his save percentages were by the danger of each shot. So let's see. Forward lines, power plays, individual, on ice. I'm looking for the goalie stats here. Here we go. All right, individual. So Bussey had, let's see. So he had 3 goals against, or let me see, is that only 5-on-5? Okay, I want to look at all. Sorry that I don't have it pulled up right here, but I'm writing it down just because I want to make a point about this, because a lot of people are worried about him. I'm not. Not much. A little bit maybe, but not much. So he made 18 saves on 21 shots for 3 goals against, 1.63 expected goals against, and an .857 save percentage. He had 5 high danger shots against, made 2 saves. High danger save percentage was .400. That's not good for him. However, medium danger shots against, which is an area that he could, before his insanity run ended, he did need a little bit of improvement on. 8 out of 8 on that. Low danger shots, 7 out of 7. So, something that Brandon Bussey was not doing before was making a lot of medium and high danger saves. Or I'm sorry, medium and low danger saves. Now he's doing it. So this is actually all the signs of a player becoming more complete, of a goalie becoming more complete. AB was going to join me today to talk about this, but he couldn't make it because, as you guys know, AB is a goalie. This is normal growth that could have a huge payoff. Yeah, he wasn't making the high danger saves at the rate he needed to the other night, but he stopped 100% of all the medium and low danger chances. He had one piece of the equation, has to kind of work on that again. But the other piece of the equation that he was kind of missing, he stopped 8 out of 8 and 7 out of 7 of medium and low danger shots, respectively. The good news about that is, all he has to do is kind of rediscover what he was doing with the high danger chances, and then you're not having this conversation about him anymore. So that's why I'm just not too particularly worried about him. And not to mention, if you're talking about in the grand scheme of how the Hurricanes do business, then they're not going to face a ton of high danger shots. Yes, he does need to have those. But if he's 8 out of 8 on medium danger and 7 out of 7 on low danger shots in all situations, that's the majority of the shots that the Hurricanes give up because of how good they are at shot suppression. Is the defense a little uncharacteristic? Yes. Am I the biggest fan of the Slavin Chatfield pairing? With absolutely no criticism to them, I just think both those guys need to have a puck mover with them. Yes, I have been critical of that. However, as far as Bussey is concerned in isolation, I am not really worried about him. This is his first full season in the NHL. This was the first chance that he got up here. He made the most of it, and he got a reasonable contract, if you ask me. So, I am personally not really worried about a stat line like this when I know the Hurricanes don't give up many high danger chances. Now, teams have to work for the ones they get. So the ones they get are the highest quality of the highest quality. But I am not going to worry when I see that there's other metrics that are not going down, but actually improving in comparison to what he has done before. So this is just, I don't like to call him growing pains because he is kind of far along in his career in the grand scheme of things, not just talking about the NHL, but him playing in the American League and everywhere he played before that. However, giving up 3 goals and all 3 of them on high danger chances out of all 21 of those shots is actually not that bad. Do we want to see him return to form, stopping those high danger chances? Absolutely. But just imagine, if you will, and it's a realistic thing to project that could happen, that he starts making those high danger saves again at the rate that he was. The other night, you're talking about it being Toronto gets 1 goal, maybe. And then on top of that, the big observational thing that he has to improve is his handling of the puck. That will not improve much during the season. That's an off-season thing that I think would be best for him to work on. That's a hard thing to get used to when you get to a higher level, is handling the puck, because there's a lot more interpretation to it. You have guys like Kochetkov that just say, for better or worse, I'm going. Bussy, there's a little bit of hesitation there when playing the puck. There's a little bit of confusion. There's a little bit of bad decision-making with playing the puck. The good news about that is those are all things that can be worked on over the offseason in non-consequential environments, and he will improve on those things. I still have full and complete confidence that this guy is going to be a good goalie. If he ends up just being a high-end 1B, it's less than $2 million a season, that is fine. But I am not too worried about him. I'm really not. Now, some other things I want to talk about that I saw with this game in particular. Power Play 2 is coming along. It actually looked a little bit better than Power Play 1 on a few of those sequences. And I think that Rod needs to keep giving them some more time like he has been. I think Power Play 2 is going to come along and it's going to come into fruition. I think that there's a good balance, a good configuration between Power Play 1, Power Play 2. Power Play 1's not super front-loaded. Power Play 2 is not bad. It's historically better than what Power Play 2 has been for the Hurricanes in recent memory. Power Play 2 last year was almost not worth talking about. Power Play 2 this year, I like a lot more of what I'm seeing out of it. Part of the reason that they were able to do that was because Jordan Stahl's presence on Power Play 1 allows you to have someone like Stankoven, Ehlers, etc., someone who would normally be on the first Power Play unit potentially, to be on the second unit. So I'm not worried about that. Now, the second line, I think it's solid right now. How it's going to translate in the playoffs, I don't know. But the only way to know is to see them play in the playoffs. I'm a little bit more confident in them now than I was around the trade deadline. A lot of the disappointment and a lot of the doomerism I had on the day of the trade deadline and the immediate days after has kind of gone away. It's going to sound kind of stupid, but the thing that kind of sparked my hope again was how Jarvis dropped the gloves with Zemgus Girgensons after Aho was hit. Is that the guy you want doing it frequently? No. It's not that Jarvis can't fight. I mean, he's better at it than probably 95% of the people in the NHL, just to be honest at this point. But the willingness was there, and that's what's important. And I think that that was one of the biggest reasons Carolina was able to win that game against Tampa, was Jarvis doing what he did in that situation. So there's a little bit more good than bad with this team in that regard than there was before. I think there's something they can build on here. Now, how far they're going to go in the playoffs, I don't know. They might still be a paper dragon, as I have stated in the past. On paper, logically and analytically speaking, yes, they are a paper dragon. But this team's got a lot of heart. So, really, really happy with what I've seen of them lately. I know that they're not winning games in the most dominant fashion, but they are still winning. That's a good thing. We will see as things go on. So we're going to do some of the comments here. We're going to talk a little bit about the game today. We will take a short break so I can compile some more data, and then we will get right back to it. Timmy, what's up? Believe, focus, and pull. Tulski, come on, come on. 2 points is 2 points, as Bobby says. Yeah, and that's kind of one of the big gists of everything I'm talking about here. 2 points is 2 points. And if they can win games under kind of adverse circumstances like they have lately, again, no Goss to spare. Nikishin has helped mitigate that a lot, 5-on-5 and on the power play both. No Goss to spare. It sucks, but they're winning without him, and he's an important piece of this team. He always has been, so long as he's been here. You know, he's one of those guys that I think his 5-on-5 defense is underrated side of his game. People got used to seeing the way that Shea defended with physicality, and they thought that there was no way to get similar results in a different manner, and that's what Goss to spare does. So, but yeah, Skylark, I understand why you were a little bit upset with that. And it was not a decisive bounce back, but I don't think it was as bad of a game as a lot of people are saying it is. Considering he was 100% on medium and low danger chances, I'm good with that because he wasn't doing that before. Bussy used to let in early in his tenure. It's a small sample size in the grand scheme of things. But he was letting in more of the medium and high danger shots or medium and low danger shots and making crazy high danger saves. The high danger part of it has tapered off a little bit, and he settled into more of a conventional making medium and low danger saves. Once he rediscovers his form on those high danger saves, good to go. And I think that he will get there. I really do. I got a lot of confidence in him. He's a good goalie. He's hit a snag, and he has a reputation now. The league knows who he is. So they're going to go differently about their shot placement, what type of chances they try to generate in front of him. When they're in a situation of pass or shoot, what do you do? There's a mental data bank on everybody in this league. And people took notes of Brandon Bussi, and they started, attacking the net differently. That doesn't mean that he can't adjust, and that doesn't mean he can't regain form. Bobby says, especially the way our most hated team is playing, don't even want to say the name. Yeah, I know which ones you're talking about. Neck and neck with them. Bobby says, with Bussi, players have had time to study him and find out what his weaknesses are, but he will adapt. Yes, Bussi is going to be fine. I genuinely believe that. I really do. Slave and Nikishin paired up would be awesome. Yeah, if Rod's going to do that, though, if we don't see it soon, don't expect it. Just because he's been really good about not going to the blender this season with the forwards and the defense. He's letting them work through kinks. Do I like the lines? Not really. Do I think they're going to hold up in the playoffs? I have my doubts. But the fact of the matter is they're working right now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, Dylan, what's up, buddy? Games like the last two say a lot more about the team than us blowing teams out of the water. Shows a lot of fight, grit, and passion. Yeah, I feel better about this team than I did. I really do. Because seeing how they've handled stuff post-deadline, like I said, they're not winning dominant games, but if you think you're going to dominate all the way through the Stanley Cup playoffs, that's not going to happen. We know that from history. So, all right. On to today's game. Hurricanes, Penguins. This one is a big one for a multitude of reasons. One, the season series is 2-1, but Pittsburgh has the only regulation win. So, Pittsburgh won the first game. That's 2 points right there. And then they get 2 points from their shootout loss and their recent overtime loss. So that's 4. The Hurricanes have won 2 games, and they have 4 points. So, season series is tied at 4 points apiece. This is a big one today because, one, you want the Hurricanes to decide the season series, even though the Penguins are pretty far behind them in points. 2, you want to win a 4-point swing, preferably in regulation, and that puts it all but out of reach. And then you only have to worry about winning the East if you can against a team like Buffalo. So, which can be done. So, overall record, Hurricanes are 44-19-6. The Penguins are 29-28-12. One of the reasons I'm not too worried about the Penguins is they are very dependent on loser points. 24 of their points in the standings have come from losses after regulation. In the last 10 games, the Hurricanes are 6-4-0. The Penguins are 4-3-3. The Penguins are 17-9-8 at home. So a lot of the games that they're having to, get the extra point in after regulation are coming at home. Last change does not favor them as well as it would in a situation where the Hurricanes have home ice advantage in a theoretical playoff series if that were to happen at some point. But today's a good day to have a litmus test, have a barometer of that. Hurricanes are 19-10-4 on the road. Excellent. Goal differential, Hurricanes are plus 40. The Penguins are plus 26. Goals for per game, 3.47, 3.12. Goals against per game, 2.93 to 3.43. The Penguins are one of those teams that high-scoring games favor their chances to win. The Hurricanes do need to return to form on the defensive side of things a little bit. 5-on-5 goals percentage, these teams are pretty close, 53.29 to 53.02. The Penguins have a little bit of an advantage in the power play of 24.9 to 22.1. As I showed in the last show with the splits, the Hurricanes power play number is kind of tanked because it was bad for about the first 4 to 6 weeks roughly. And then it started improving, and it's been solid ever since. Part of that is because of the second unit that I was talking about earlier improving. Penalty kill, 79.5 for the Hurricanes, 84.2 for the Penguins. So again, big one here today. So I am going to finish up these slides. Give me about 15 minutes. Let's see. It is currently 1:43. We will be back at about 1:55. Alrighty, so right back into it here. Had to get the rest of that stuff uploaded. So, Taylor Hall will be playing in his 100th game as a Hurricane today when they take on his 101st game as a Hurricane. These are the latest lines. These are from their most previous game. I don't see any reason why there would be any changes. I have currently not seen anything different. So, Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis, Hall, Stankov, and Blake, Ehlers, Martinuk, Carrier, Jankowski, Robinson, Slavin, Chatfield, Miller, Walker, Riley, Nikishin. Frederick Anderson will be getting to start for the Hurricanes. Similarly, the Penguins, who played yesterday, Raquel, Crosby, Rust, Chinikov, Novak, Malkin, Mantha, Kendall, Brazeau, Soderblom, DeWoer, Achari, Witherspoon, Carlson, Gerard, Letang, Shea, Clifton, and Stuart Skinner. I almost said Jeff Skinner. My apologies. Will be getting the start for them. We'll talk about the goaltending here shortly. Now, biggest thing that I want to point out here, and it was very evident in the first game that the Hurricanes and Penguins played against each other this season. The Penguins are not as fast of a team now. Their core's on the other side. Most of their core's on the other side of the back, or they're on the back nine. But what they do have is an ability to enter the zone with numbers, and they do it on the strong side. And what I mean by that is whoever is carrying the puck, when they go to enter the offensive zone, those players tend to not drift too wide of them. They tend to stay pretty close to them, and they make those short range 10, 12-foot passes a whole lot easier. And then they attack the net with numbers thanks to those entries. Carolina had a really hard time with that the first time they played. Now, granted, there was no Slavin. Nikishin's defensive game had not come along as far as it has now. Those things considered, I don't think that'll happen so much today. Additionally, the Penguins will have last change since they are at home, so that's going to be a challenge for Carolina to tackle compared to last time where Pittsburgh took advantage of having last change, and that also helped them get the matchups they wanted and made those entries a little bit easier for them. They will have that advantage again today, but it's something that Carolina, I think, will be far more prepared to mitigate, if not outright deny, than they were last time. Top line there, Crosby, Raquel, Rust. Those guys don't need any introduction. We know how good of a line that they can be together. Rust is one of Pittsburgh's best playoff performers. Sidney Crosby is Sidney Crosby, and Ricard Raquel as a scoring punch and a playmaking touch to that line. So then when you look at the second line, Novak, Malkin, Chinikov, good second line. The top six there is pretty solid. Not as solid as a lot of the top sixes that Carolina would have to worry about, but still pretty good. Kendall, Mantha, Brazeau. Ben Kendall is going to be a problem in this league. That kid's good. He's already showing signs of becoming a really good player. He could be an elite player, even one would say. Soderblom, DeWar, Achari. When it comes to the bottom six, comparing them in Carolina, I'm still giving Carolina the advantage there. Now, this defense, if you're going to exploit a pair here, it would be the second pair with Gerard and Letang. Gerard has actually been good for them because it gave Letang a safety valve so that he can open up the offensive puck-moving side of his game more than normal. And when Erik Karlsson is playing well, he produces, and he is right now. Witherspoon gave Karlsson that safety valve. Gerard gave Letang a safety valve. So let me backtrack here. I misread that. Gerard gave Letang a safety valve, and he's not playing as well as he once did. He has most certainly lost a step. He is not the player he was. But if you really want to exploit a pair, that second pair, particularly on Letang's side, is your best chance. Letang is their best chance to produce on that pair. If he's not producing, that pair is not producing. Gerard does give him a safety valve. But again, pressing the right side of the ice, Pittsburgh's right side of the ice with Letang on the ice, is something that could prove advantageous for Carolina. That third pair is definitely more of a pure shutdown pair, Shea and Clifton. A lot of physicality there, particularly with Clifton. The way that you stack these up, you wouldn't compare the Karlsson and Witherspoon. The comparable wouldn't be Karlsson and Witherspoon's pair to Carolina's first pair of Slavin and Chatfield. It would be more of a comparable to have Shea and Clifton compared to Slavin and Chatfield, because they're both kind of pure shutdown pairs, and they drive possession through defense primarily. I would say Slavin and Chatfield is definitely better than Clifton and Shea. I think what's more comparable here is Walker and Miller to Witherspoon and Karlsson. Walker and Miller would have an advantage there if Erik Karlsson was not playing as well as he is. Keeping that in mind, they're pretty close if you ask me, but I got to give that a little bit of an advantage there. Witherspoon or Gerard and Letang, Riley and Nikishin is better than that every day of the week. but it's a little bit closer than I think a lot of people would imagine. But overall, I'll still give the defensive advantage to Carolina. The top six is kind of close. I'll give that advantage a little bit to Pittsburgh. The bottom six, I give that to Carolina. Ben Kendall is not going to be a bottom six guy forever. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the top six next season, especially if Malkin does not come back. So, overall advantage to Carolina in terms of the lineup and the roster construction. Now, looking at the skating speed here, Pittsburgh has a little bit higher of a top speed, but Carolina has an advantage in 22 plus mile per hour bursts, 87 to 70, 20 to 22 mile per hour bursts. Carolina has a pretty big advantage there with 1,459 to 1,277, 18 to 20 mile per hour bursts, 6,517 for Carolina to 6,596 for Pittsburgh. Now, that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Pittsburgh does not need to play a speedy possession game. Pittsburgh generates clean entries, and then they go from there. And they do it by keeping their forwards relatively closely grouped on entry. Carolina had seemed to figure that out the last two times they played them. The first time that they played against Pittsburgh, that was very much of a problem for them, and that was the biggest reason that game was such a disaster, the first game of the season between these two. I'm expecting that, like I said, to still be a problem. But it's something I think Carolina will be more prepared to mitigate, and this time Slavin is there. And then that is one upside of having a full shutdown pair like Slavin and Chatfield. I imagine they'll be matched up as much as possible, as much as you can on the road against Pittsburgh's top six. But even then, they still have plenty of good stuff going on in that bottom six, primarily thanks to Ben Kendall. Zone time, Carolina, great advantage there, as pretty much always, 45.4 to 41.4. In the offensive zone, 18.4 to 17.7 in the neutral zone, 36.2 to 41% in the defensive zone. Shot attempt differential, both of these teams are above league average. Carolina plus 8.1 to plus 1.7 for Pittsburgh. Shots on goal differential, not a big difference there, to be expected. 0.2 for Carolina, 0.1 for the Penguins. Again, both teams are above league average. Shots on goal, I'm expecting to be relatively even today. Shot attempts, I'm expecting to be very lopsided in Carolina's favor if they play well. Going into shots on goal, Carolina, again, advantage there. Almost entirely across the board, 2,238 to 2,008 in all locations. The Penguins have one more high danger shot on goal at even strength, 620 to 619, mid-range 665 to 603, long range 537 to 345. Carolina has a bigger advantage here than they would have in years past with the Penguins because Letang is not getting pucks through traffic the way that he used to. Carlson is doing it right now. So something to keep an eye on there. If they do have a threat from the point, it is Erik Karlsson. Goals at even strength, 240 to 238. High danger, 113 to 115, favoring the Penguins. Mid-range, 87 to 73, favoring the Hurricanes. Long range, 20 to 17, favoring the Hurricanes. So not huge advantages there in the two advantages that the Hurricanes have, and they're almost a dead heat in high danger chances. If you limit the high danger chances for Pittsburgh, this is one of the coolest parts about covering the Hurricanes. It's you kind of know what you need to talk about almost every time. Limit the high danger chances, especially from the top six of the Penguins, and you're in business here. Goaltending matchup. This is the fifth time that Frederik Andersen and Stuart Skinner will be playing against each other this season. Kind of interesting to think about. It's almost like they've played their own little miniature playoff series within the regular season because Skinner, of course, played for the Oilers before being traded for Tristan Jarry. So Frederik Andersen, in 28 games played, he has 12 wins, 11 losses, 5 overtime losses, a 3.19 goals against average, and a save percentage of .872. Stuart Skinner, 42 games played, he has 20 wins, 13 losses, 9 overtime losses, 2.85 goals against average, .890 save percentage. Keep in mind, a lot of that was with the Oilers. However, neither one of the defenses on either one of these teams that he has played for has been very good. Not nearly as good as the characteristics that we see of the defense of the Hurricanes. But Stuart Skinner, I think, is a little bit better of a goalie than people give him credit for because he showed, especially the last couple of times that the Hurricanes have seen him, he can be a difference-making goalie. Is he Patrick Waugh? No. Is he better than people give him credit for? I do believe. Save percentage, .890 to .872, favoring Skinner. High danger, .799 to .797, so pretty close there, favoring Stuart Skinner as well. Mid-range, .878 to .843, pretty big advantage there for Skinner. And then another close one, .971 to .964 in long-range shots. So you'll notice where Stuart Skinner is giving up a lot of his goals. Those kind of wide-angle shots off to the side of the crease, or where Freddie's giving up a lot of his goals, I should say. Wide angle shots off to the side of the crease right there in the high slot and everything like that. Stuart Skinner has really good long range save percentages. 1,000, 1,000, 932, 1,000. Where Skinner seems to struggle at is directly in front of him. 818 on the doorstep, 867 right in front of the crease, 840 in the high slot. So this is where Carolina, with all the shots that they generate, rebounds will be important to beat Stuart Skinner. You can get to him early that way. So when you're volume shooting and you're making those second effort plays to try and eat up those rebounds and score on second efforts, that's where you can get to a goalie like Stuart Skinner. He's not going to give you much to the outside. He's pretty solid at sealing the post. He's good at stopping the initial long-range shot. But the initial long-range shot isn't necessarily the one that has to score. That's the one that has to get the puck in position so that somebody can get that rebound. That's where someone like Svechnikov comes in. That's where someone, even with his lack of size, like Stankoven comes in. That's where someone like Jordan Staal comes in, establishing that net front presence, having those good, quick off-puck routes, get him moving side to side, and taking those shots from the middle of the ice. Like Trip Tracy says, everything goes through the middle of the ice. This is one of those games where they have to get things through the middle of the ice and make it count at the same time. Shots against, goals against. Freddie has lower numbers in all this, but he's also played several less games. 90 to 117, 48 to 61, 31 to 40, 4 to 6. So you're not going to see a whole lot of goals go in, and like I've already talked about in the last slide, you're not going to see a whole lot of goals go in against Stuart Skinner from the point. You're not going to see a whole lot of wide angle stuff go in against him. Where you do get him is in the immediate high danger areas, in the high slot, right between the dots, on the doorstep, and right in front of the crease. That's where Carolina wants to generate a lot of their secondary offensive chances from. Putting it on net is great. Putting it on net from anywhere is great. What I think is going to be important today in terms of beating Stuart Skinner is going to be putting it on net and making sure you're on the doorstep to get the rebounds. He will give you rebounds. You have to make the most of the ones that he does give you. If he bats it off into the corner, work it back to the front of the net. Whether you do that through passing or power moves, doesn't matter. So that is it for the slides. So biggest thing to remember here, Pittsburgh will generate high danger chances. They have a top six that's very capable of it. They have a bottom six that's also relatively capable of it. And that, Ben Kendall, like I said, has been the big driving factor with that. Keep them out of there. The more you keep them out of there, the less time they spend there, the less likely it is that Pittsburgh wins this game. Inversely, Carolina has to do the exact opposite at the other end. Spend as much time in the high slot and right on the doorstep, right in front of the crease, and having a good net front presence as possible. What Carolina prevents at one end of the ice today is what they need to create at the other end. Prevent the high danger chances in the slot area at one end, and then create them and capitalize on them at the other. So I'm going to get to the rest of the comments here. We're going to call it a stream. I might do damage report right after this game. I might wait until tomorrow. We will see. Dan says, I wish they would call up Nystrom or let Delorier play instead of Riley. I don't know why they're not calling Nystrom up. The upside of it is Nikishin has spent a good amount of time on the right side of the ice, and he scored that overtime winner there the other night. So I'm hoping that the long-term plan for him is to let him stay on the right side of the ice because he's clearly more comfortable there. Orlov was more comfortable on that side of the ice a little bit. We saw him over there when he was paired with Shea when there were injuries a couple of years ago. I personally would very much prefer that Nikishin stay on that side of the ice. Now, whether that's the long-term plan or not, I don't know. But I think that would be the play. Lackey, what's up, buddy? Pretty ridiculous that number 12 New York Islanders and number 13 Ottawa and number 15 Philadelphia and number 16 Washington are all on the outside looking in, while number 19 Vegas is in a comfortable 3 seed. Yeah, see, the funny thing about that, I remember a lot of times during the Dark Ages, I want to say there were 3 or 4 seasons I remember specifically looking at the standings and going, damn, the Hurricanes would be in the playoffs if they were in the West. And, Carolina, like, especially after the realignment and everything, that was a horrible time to be in the East because you had Philadelphia making the playoffs every other year. Islanders were still pretty good. Prime Crosby in Pittsburgh, prime Ovechkin in Washington. And it was just the East was a bloodbath back then. Now the Hurricanes are finally in the slightly, the easier division, but kind of the harder conference. The West in general, though, is kind of a joke. So there's not many teams out West that scare me in the event that they would theoretically play a 7-game series against Carolina, Colorado being one of them. But that's one of those teams Carolina could make a big enough special teams net positive because of how bad Colorado's power play is. and potentially win a series like that just on that alone. Keep it close 5-on-5 and then make the difference with scoring on the power play and shutting them down on the penalty kill. That totally could happen. So, but yes, Anderson Skinner part 5. This will be the 5th time they've faced off against each other this year. That's something. Lackey says hopefully starting on time isn't a problem we've seen in other early starts this season. Yeah, that's going to be a big thing today. Start on time. That needs to be a big thing going forward. And like I said, I think maybe subconsciously the team is backing off because there's no point in going all in right now. This game today, however, is one of those start on time, get it over with. It's a 4-point swing with a team that's chasing you and that you need to win the season series just to pretty much put the division out of reach. If Carolina wins today, the division is all but mathematically out of reach. So preferably win in regulation and just be done with it. That would be the best thing that could happen today. Lackey says pull for net front presence. Yes, absolutely. Big net front presence. Eat up those rebounds. Good off puck routes. All that good stuff. Carolina will be fine if they do all that. Ethan says at this moment, who are you more confident with in net? Freddie. Freddie right now. That being said, like I was talking about early in the show, if you saw it, Ethan, I was talking about Bussy in the last game where he had 3 goals against, 18 saves on 21 shots, 1.63 expected goals against. So he did not save above expected all in that game. The silver lining of it was 5 high danger chances. He stopped 2, 8 for 8, 7 for 7 on medium and low danger chances respectively. So, or shots, I should say, not just chances, shots. So what he wasn't doing before was making a lot of medium and low danger saves, and now he is. The high dangers are taking a hit, but that's kind of to be expected. So Carolina doesn't allow a whole lot of high danger chances. So honestly, he's not in as bad of a spot as it looks like on the surface, and he was never going to maintain the run he was on. Not to mention, Rod tends to favor experience anyway, and that's not always a bad thing. If the playoffs started tomorrow, Freddie's probably the guy, because he went to the Olympics, he played well there, he came back, and he's played well since the Olympics have been over. So, Bussy is an unproven asset in the playoffs. At some point he probably will have to play during the playoffs because inevitably Anderson would probably have a game that would require Bussy to go in relief at least. Or, God forbid, he gets injured. Those things could happen. So we will see. And then there's also what Tulsky said in regards to Kochekov potentially being ready by the playoffs. I personally don't see that happening. Hip injuries are complicated, especially for goalies, but we will see. So that is all I got for right now. Oh wait, Lackey. Lackey says, should Slavin get extended rest before the playoffs? Yes. It feels like he's gassed himself out with the Olympics and paying the price now. Yeah, Slavin should if possible, should get extended rest. Now, that's part of the reason why it's so important to win this game today. Because if you win the game today, you essentially put the Metropolitan Division in the hands of Carolina. And it would take some absurd win streak by the Penguins or loss by the Hurricanes or losing streak by the Hurricanes to give the Penguins a mathematical chance to get back in. Because let me see this, and I already talked about the season series. If Carolina can win that today, that'll be big because then it's one less thing you have to worry about. All right, so both these teams have 69 nice games played. 94 points for Carolina, 86 for the Penguins. So that's an 8-point difference. If Carolina wins in regulation today, that leaves 24 remaining points, and Carolina would have a 10-point lead. And they would have the season series locked up. It would be virtually impossible for the Penguins to catch the Hurricanes at that point. Once you've got the division locked up, the only other thing that you really have to worry about is Buffalo with 94 points and maybe Tampa with 90. Tampa also has a game in hand on Carolina as of right now. And they do not play today, I don't think. Yes, they do. They play the Flames at 8 o'clock. So Tampa will still have a game in hand on Carolina when the sun sets today on the East Coast. So those are the two teams that you have to worry about the most right now. So Carolina obviously still has something to play for. However, if they win today, they basically put the Metropolitan Division out of reach because the Penguins would have to win at that point. They'd have to win 5 in a row, and Carolina would have to lose 5 in a row essentially. No, I take that back. If Carolina wins today, it would be a 10-point difference. Carolina would have to lose 6, and the Penguins would have to win 7, or Carolina would have to lose 5, and the Penguins would have to win 6, all in regulation with no loser points accounted for. to be able to catch them. And then again, if Carolina wins today, Pittsburgh would have to leapfrog them in the standings through points to be able to secure first in the Metropolitan Division. So, last thing you need here, you get that done. You've got a 4-point edge on Tampa, even though they've got a game in hand. They will probably win tonight because they're playing the Flames. So, they've still got something to play for. When you get to the last 5 games of the season, though, that's when you can start talking about realistically resting Slavin for an extended period of time. And when I say an extended period of time, 4 or 5 games if you can. Because this month, like I said, has absolutely sucked, but it's almost over. So you've got one more away game this week after this one in Montreal on the 24th. That wraps up that road trip. They get 3 days off. New Jersey and Montreal, Saturday and Sunday. I'll be there for both those games. They're both at home. Then on the 31st, you have Columbus, and that's an away game. Then the hardest part of the schedule is pretty much over at that point. Now, then after that, you have a 2-game homestand where it's every other game. You only have one so once this month is over. Actually, let's see. This weekend and 2 in April. Okay. So the hard part of the schedule will be over after they play Montreal on the 24th. The hardest part of it, I should say. They'll have the back-to-back at home against a team that they should beat on Saturday and a team that they could turn around and beat again on Sunday. Game on the 31st. No game on the 1st. 2-game homestand. They go on the road. Then play the Bruins at home on the 7th. That'll be the last regular season game at home in April. And then 9th, 11th, 13th, and 14th, they're on the road for the rest of it, so they don't have to worry about traveling back home. They just keep rolling with the road trip. So once they leave on the 7th of April, or after the 7th of April when they play Boston, they'll play Chicago, game they should win. Utah, game they should win. Philadelphia, game they should win. Islanders, a game they should win, even if they go to a skeleton crew for those last 4 games. So I'm thinking that sometime between the home game on April 2nd and the home game on April 7th, that's when you can give Slavin an extended rest. He'll get his 3 days off here after Tuesday, or anybody they need to rest for that matter. And then on the 28th against New Jersey, you could potentially maybe let Slavin rest that night if you want him to get an extra day and still win that game. Then, Columbus, they're not catching you. So, more than likely, especially if Carolina wins today, because then Columbus has to leapfrog Pittsburgh and pass Carolina. So, won't have to worry about that so much. But I'm thinking sometime around the 7th of April, that's when we'll see Rod start resting players. Another good thing about that is you can just call up a bunch of guys from the minors, get a look at them. A lot of them are going to be your black aces in the playoffs, Nystrom, Legault, Nadeau, etc. And you could go ahead and get an extended look at those guys over the course of those 4 games. So that's what I'm hoping they will do, if they see it fit to do so. But yeah, around the 7th of April, I think you'll start seeing guys get rested. And I think you'll start seeing Delorier, maybe Kokoniemi, guys like that in the lineup around that time. So we will see. Ethan says, what's your urgency level with moving Nikishin up, moving Chatty down? It feels like Nikishin is improving. The first pair just offers too little offensively. If it doesn't happen soon, it will not happen at all. And Rod would not, and he should not, in my opinion, change the defensive pairs too close to the playoffs starting, because you want those guys to get acclimated before the games stop being about 2 points and start being about winning a series. So if we don't see it soon, considering after today there will only be 12 games left, this is game 70. If you don't see it soon, you probably won't see it at all. I don't know exactly what they're planning on with that, but I would say that you probably want to, if you're going to do it, it needs to be done now. If you don't see it within the next 3 or 4 games, you will not see it at all. I'm just trying to, trust the process and trust the plan here and everything like that. I would like to see Nikishin moved up. I'm not expecting it to happen, though, but I would place that pretty high on the urgency scale of if you're going to do it now. But I don't think that they're going to. But yeah, the first pair, it's not so much that it offers too little offensively. Like I've said, Slavin, Chatfield play similar games in regards of how defensively minded they are. The gap control is different. With Slavin, it's technical. He just kind of dictates where you go, and then he poke checks you when he's ready. With Chatfield, he's like a freight train, and he gaps up on you really aggressively and doesn't give you time to think about what you're going to do with the puck. Or same thing if he's doing the man-on-man defense thing and handling somebody off the puck and gapping up on them to keep them from getting it. Chatfield is a very in-your-face type of defenseman. Aggressive gaps, wins foot races, all that type of stuff. Slavin, on the other hand, he's very technical with the way that he does his gaps. That's fine. The problem with it is neither one of those guys have the mindset, and it's just not a bad thing. It's just not how they play the game. It's not what's in their DNA. They don't really have the mindset of getting up ice quickly and moving their feet. Both of them favor outlet passes far more over skating the puck out, executing the zone exit themselves. So they're parallel with each other. Whereas in the past, Slavin, for example, would be with someone like Hamilton, D'Angelo, or Burns, who did have that mind to find that open ice, take a couple of steps early, and make themselves open for that outlet passing option. Chatfield and Slavin kind of play pong with each other in the defensive zone until something good opens up instead of one of those guys coming up and creating another option in the neutral zone for that outlet pass. And I think that's where that pair kind of struggles a little bit. Them killing penalties together, I have no problem with. But 5-on-5, that's the thing I don't like about that pair, is they spend more time in the defensive zone because someone's not getting up ice faster, depending on what side of the ice the play is on and what's going on in the neutral zone. So that's my only thing with that. Blackie says 5 of the last 6 will be on the road. The travel will probably prove to be more tedious in the strength of schedule. I'm not really worried about that because I think that's around the time that they will start resting guys and rotating them in, calling people up from the minors and getting a look at them. You know, it'd be a good time to get a four-game look at Nadeau. Around that time would be great. A 4-game look at Nystrom, a 4-game look at Legault, even though you already got a sample size of the 2 aforementioned. That'd be a good time to get a look at them, get Kotkaniemi in there and get him some reps just in case he's needed in the playoffs. Get Delory in there, let him get some reps and, you know, tell him to take a break from hitting the heavy bag and put the skates back on. You could do all those things. I don't think that that's going to be so bad, and those last 4 games might not be consequential anyway. Not to mention you're playing Chicago as one of those games, Philadelphia is one of those games, and the Islanders on a back-to-back is one of those games, so there's not a ton of travel time between Philadelphia and Long Island since these guys get to ride planes everywhere that they go. So I'm not really worried about that part of the schedule. That's basically going to be them tying up loose ends at the end of the season. As long as they are leading the Metropolitan Division after the game on the 31st of this month, I'm not worried about anything. If they win today, I'm not really worried about anything at all in regards to that. Winning the East, yeah, it's important, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's fine. Carolina can win a playoff series without having home ice advantage. They've done it before. They did it as recently as last year against Washington. So in a series that everyone said that Carolina was going to get killed, but Washington proved that they were, again, the postseason frauds that they normally are. I could see Carolina playing in the ECF with a team like Buffalo or Tampa and still winning despite not having home ice advantage. I would rather them have it. But as it stands right now, the only team in the East that would have home ice advantage over them is Buffalo. And I hate to say this in a way that might be a good thing, at least for us as fans. The reason why I say that is because of those bastards relocating that IBM headquarters to the Triangle or whatever it was. I think it's been about 15, 20 years, something like that now. The playoffs are going to be unpleasant for us against Buffalo anyway because there's going to be more of their fans there than there were in 2006, if they get that far. Buffalo doesn't have any playoff experience. That's one thing where potentially they could lose in the second round, like let's say Tampa advances and they play Buffalo. That's one thing where, you know, Buffalo might get, you know, caved in by a team with a ton of playoff experience like Tampa. A ton of playoff experience where most of their core has been playing together that entire time. What playoffs experience Buffalo has is kind of fragmented. It's all guys from other teams who got it. Nobody currently wearing a Sabre sweater played a playoff game in a Sabre sweater. So all that to be considered. The only relic that they have from that time is Lindy Ruff. And, you know, I would love nothing more to say Brendan Moore beat him as a player while he was a coach and then beat him again as a coach while he was a coach. But yeah, the Hurricanes just got to get through the rest of this month. It's almost over. You get through today, get through Tuesday, and you're good. In my opinion, I'm sorry, Monday. No, it is Tuesday. You get through today, you get through Tuesday, you're good. 3 days off. So, a couple of nights in your own bed. 2 home games back to back. Could win them both. Should at least win one. But as far as scheduled losses, as they like to say, this should be the last one, if you want to call it that. All right, everybody. This has been An absolute pleasure, as always. I'm going to go get settled in, get ready to watch the game. I'm going to have some wings, I'm going to have some pizza, and then I'm going to drink a bunch of water because I'm skating for the, let's see, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, and then again on Tuesday. I will be skating for the third time in this 7-day span, and my knee actually feels really good. So I want to keep it going and see how it holds up because I would like to get back to skating 4 times a week if I could. Thank you very much for joining me. I will possibly see you after the game. Either way, I plan on doing damage report tomorrow if I have time. I got some schoolwork I got to finish up after the game, and then maybe I can do it. Just kind of depends. I will see you later.